The Sun and 3i Atlas are still interacting, communicating, which supports claims that 3i Atlas is transmitting frequencies impacting our entire solar system. It's unprecedented for the US to support the United Nations Security Council in a major resolution on the Palestine-Israel problem. NASA caught once again turning off its International Space Station live stream when a UFO shows up. Not a coincidence. NASA finally released its high-rise image of 3i Atlas after over a month of delays, and it was no better than amateur telescope images. Age of Disclosure is now available and focuses on the testimony of 34 former, current government, military, and intelligence officials who say they have seen evidence of UFOs. These stories and more on Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review.
You are listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
Welcome to the November 22nd edition of Exopolitics Today, the Week in Review. So there's been quite a lot of developments this week, mainly to do with 3i Atlas, but some other noteworthy news stories concerning exopolitics. So let's get right into it. And so here is a retweet of something that was posted by Dr. Horace Drew on his X feed. And he made the, I think, very accurate observation that if 3i Atlas was really just a comet, NASA would have flooded news channels with high-resolution images of it near Mars that were taken on October 3rd. But after more than 40 days, it has still been delayed, and it was only just released a couple of days ago at a press conference. But what he is observing here is that NASA often does this delay, obfuscation, and then eventually it will release doctored photos because of the thing that they're trying to hide. So if 3i Atlas was just a comet, then they would have released the data a lot earlier. But because of the delays, because of what the final image was released, then I guess this increases the chances that really NASA is really up to its same old game of just covering up the truth. But the good thing is that from November 27, so later this week, this coming week, for the next 2 months to January 27, there is a exercise that has been created by the International Asteroid Warning Network, which is an organization affiliated with the United Nations, and all the world's major astronomical observatories and amateur astronomers and so forth are connected with that. And so that is not controlled by NASA. And so on the one hand, while NASA seems to be shutting down and obfuscating, delaying the truth about 3i Atlas, on the other hand, you have this international body which presumably is working with white hats to get the world's amateur astronomers to focus on 3i Atlas. And so let's see what happens as this week plays out. So here is a short. I'm going to be doing a lot more in the way of shorts from now. So you'll be seeing a lot of these on my Twitter feed and TikTok and Instagram and even YouTube. So keep a lookout for those. So here is a short segment featuring JP, who talks about his direct experience and knowledge of medbeds that were used in secret space programs. JP here, he released a video where he's talking about medbeds. He's talking about his direct experience with medbeds. JP, he was stationed at Gilliland Air Force Base, and after his retirement, he was actually taken into one of these medbeds. So he describes different types of medbeds based on what he's directly experienced during his military service. So that goes for about 22 minutes. Obviously, it's too long for me to play, but definitely take a look at that if you are interested in medbeds, because it's great that we actually have someone who has directly experienced them. Oops, okay, so that was a little clip from last week's week in review, so you get to hear the highlight of that. But if you haven't subscribed to my TikTok and Instagram feeds, then you can do so, and you can expect a lot more of these shorts coming out over the weeks and months ahead. So here is an interview I did with James Gilliland and Peter Maxwell Slattery that is available on all of my channels, including Patreon. If people on Patreon, they get to see the videos a day or two earlier. And of course, that does support me. If you are a member of Patreon, your subscription directly supports this channel and means that we can put out a lot of free stuff, because we put out 12 to 13 videos a month. These are interviews and also week in reviews, and they're all for free. And where we are able to support ourselves is through Patreon memberships and through our webinar series. So appreciation to all of you who have subscribed to Patreon. It really does make a difference. So as far as this interview, what Peter and James emphasize is the role of self-mastery, that the extraterrestrial phenomenon involves frequencies and energies that are so elevated that if you haven't done the inner work, you get triggered. Past life memories or things in your subconscious that have been buried, the stuff that we carry within us, because of, a lifetime of experiences with others, whether it's issues of betrayal, whether it's issues of abuse, trauma, victimhood, whatever it is that you carry within you that's unresolved. When you meet or interact with extraterrestrials or higher dimensional beings, these emotional issues come up to the surface. And what happens is that these emotions, they can and do influence our perceptions of what's going on. So if you see a phenomenon like Three-Eye Atlas as carrying, say, for example, Draco-reptilian warriors that have been sent here to invade the Earth, that could be a result of you being influenced in some way by a lot of this unresolved stuff. And it goes the other way as well, that if you have resolved a lot of these issues and you actually are in a place where you don't get triggered by others, then Three-Eye Atlas doesn't trigger you, and you can more accurately see what the energies are, and you may see that these are very, very positive and enlightened beings associated with Three-Eye Atlas. So Peter and James, they have their own sanctuaries in Mount Adams, Washington State, and also the Jaya Sanctuary in the Albury-Wodonga area of Victoria, Australia. And people have also all sorts of experiences. These are clearly very powerful energy vortices, those locations, which explains why people see so many UFOs, so many orbs, have contact experiences. So Peter and James are well qualified to be able to talk about contact and what it is that we need to do to prepare for contact. And they emphasize the work of self-mastery, where you really do that inner work of just clearing everything within you that is of a lower vibration, victimhood, trauma, anger, feelings of revenge, and so forth. All right, so here is a short from one of the interviews I did, and this one was with Jason Shurka, who talked about rival Jedi and Sith Lodges battling over humanity's future. And I was very impressed when I heard Jason talking about his insider source, Ray, who claims to be a member of this kind of like more positive lodge, and the kind of work they do in developing their consciousness and developing paranormal abilities. And I think this is actually going on behind the scenes. That you have rival lodges, rival organizations behind the scenes battling for influence and control. Some have more positive goals. You might call those kind of like Jedi lodges, and others have more negative goals, and you can call those Sith lodges. So let's listen to how Jason describes this battle. Okay, so here was the interview I did with Jason Shurka, where he described his interviews with an individual called Ray, who's anonymous and wears a mask. So in this case, Jason Shurka is continuing to work with this unknown insider called Ray, who is a member of a organization called the Light System, and apparently there are over 5,800 members all over the world. And this organization essentially is like an occult school. You go in there and you are in a very highly disciplined environment where you develop your psychic skills and abilities, and you use those for the good of the organization. And according to Jason, this organization is really acting for the best interests of humanity and is fighting against similar organizations who have an evil agenda or a negative agenda, but also develop psychic abilities and skill sets. And so what we have here is something along the lines of rival Jedi and Sith organizations. And Jason has described how these are involved in secret space programs, deep underground military bases, super soldier programs, and so forth. And also he is involved in the development of certain technologies that can help with health. And so if you're very interested in different health modalities, Jason has some products that he thinks will help you. Okay, so that's Jason Shurka and his work with the Light System. Here is a very significant image, because this image was taken by an astronomer of 3I Atlas as it emerged after achieving perihelion with the sun. And it emerged and it was captured by an amateur astronomer. And this is Satoru Murata. And so he's using a Earth-based telescope, and he was able to show how 3I Atlas is looking today. So if you look at that, you see 3I Atlas, you see a coma around it, you see the nucleus, and then there's a faint tail, or actually several tails. Some people call these jets, and there's also a very faint anti-tail in front of it as well. So that's something that, in his view, this amateur astronomer, he thought that, well, this is typical of a comet. You've got a long tail, so it's a comet. But of course, others are making the case that, well, actually there are multiple jets coming out of 3I Atlas. That might not be a trail of cometary outgassing, but it could be like the ion wake of a craft, a craft propulsion system. So very interesting. But we will see very soon a comparison between this particular image taken by Satoru Murata and the image taken by NASA's high-rise camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter. Okay, so yeah, I've already talked about James Gilliland and Peter Slattery's interview. Here is my next webinar that's coming up on December 13. And this webinar is going to be different because I will be joined by 3 people. And rather than doing a panel, which I've done in the past, what we're going to do this time is have presentations by all 4 of us. So Stuart Swerdlow, Lily Nova, Brad Johnson, all 3 of whom have a track record in predicting future events or being given information about future events. Stuart has insider sources in NASA who have been feeding him information, and that some of that information has been very, very accurate. So so we'll have 4 presentations, and that will be over a 5 to 6 hour period on December 13th. So it'll be quite an event. It is something that you really should put on your calendar, and I hope you can register and join us. Okay, so here is JP. And JP has been doing quite a number of updates where on his channel he is talking about some of the experiences that he has had, which we've described in updates that he did with me. And some of those, or many of those updates, were actually included in the US Army Insider Missions book series, and there's 3 books at the moment that are out there, so you could get 3 books detailing all of the updates that JP has done, I think up to 2024, and amazing experiences. And one of those experiences involved him traveling into an underground area where there were basically an ant civilization. And so what JP does in these short videos, this one goes for 30 minutes, so it's a more detailed video, but he does have some clips illustrating what he did in terms of how he was taken there, the role of the special forces that he was with, and so forth. So you can get the link in the description below if you want to watch this 30-minute update by JP about the ant people. All right, so here is something from Stefan Burns, who is a geophysicist. So he looks at the weather systems on Earth and how these are impacted by the sun. In particular, coronal mass ejections, solar flares, and so forth, how they influence weather patterns on the Earth. And what he has observed in this particular video that was taken, here you can see, what was it, November of this year, and you can see how this coronal mass ejection from the sun. So the sun is in the middle, and you can see this coronal mass ejection that was sent by the sun, how that impacts the 3I Atlas. It's headed directly for it. And he has talked about in the past about 3I Atlas communicating with the sun through these coronal mass ejections, that the sun is a living organism, so he's definitely ahead of the crowd when it comes to understanding what the sun truly is. And I certainly agree, the sun is a living organism, and here it is sending these coronal mass ejections, and scientists will say, well, that's just the sun launching a CME at 3I Atlas. Stefan Burns describes it as a kind of communication, or it could be a communication. There have been others that have been looking at this and say that, well, what's happening here is that, in fact, the sun is sending warning shots to 3I Atlas and the negative beings on it. There's been quite a few sources that describe 3I Atlas as having Draco reptilians associated with it. And according to some, the sun is communicating with 3I Atlas and telling it essentially, don't you dare try to pull off some kind of invasion of the Earth. This is not something that the sun gives its approval to. So very interesting take on that. So yeah, 3i Atlas is still interacting with the sun, even though it's left the perihelion and is now on an outbound path, but the sun is still communicating with it or interacting with it. Now, here is something that I thought was very, very important from an exopolitical perspective. And that is that Donald Trump was successful in getting the United Nations Security Council to pass a major resolution on the Palestine-Israel problem. Now, this is unprecedented because in the past, typically what happens is that the United States vetoes Security Council resolutions concerning Israel because the overwhelming membership of the UN tend to vote in favor of the Palestinian cause. And so whether it's the United Nations General Assembly or the United Nations Security Council, resolutions that are passed are typically critical of Israel, and the United States has voted no, which makes no difference in the General Assembly, but in the Security Council, a no by the United States is a veto. There's 15 members of the Security Council. But in this case, the United States proposed a resolution that was based on Trump's, I think it was a 20-point peace plan for Palestine, Israel, and got it passed. And I think the Netanyahu government of Israel, which is an extreme right-wing government, it won't be pleased by this because essentially they wanted to continue the ethnic cleansing of Palestine because they think that's the only way to resolve the problem, because the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip are too radical, or that they won't rein in the Hamas radicals that have been causing Israel problems. But the majority of people in the Arab world will be very happy that the killing has stopped, or at least been curbed, because Israel is still continuing to launch attacks against the people in the Gaza Strip on what some consider to be spurious grounds. Now, what I think is very significant about this in terms of an exopolitical perspective is that President Trump will chair the Peace Board. So there's been a Peace Board that's created under this United Nations Security Council resolution. Trump is going to chair it. There are other world leaders that are going to be on it. And what this does is that puts enormous pressure on the Israeli government to kind of like step back and allow the world to intervene and help bring about some kind of resolution of the problem in Gaza. And that's unprecedented because the United States has never done this before, but it's doing it now under Donald Trump. And this, to me, is a sure sign that Trump is well on his way to becoming the first world president, as predicted by several insiders. At least two of them include George Kavasilis and Gene Decode. And they have made the case that in the future that there will be a world president. Now, exactly how that presidency will be organized, I don't think it'll be a president in the sense of someone who is appointed to that position and becomes like president for X number of years. I suspect it's going to be something along the lines of what they had in the former Yugoslavia, of a kind of rotating presidency where different countries would nominate their leader to become the president of the federation. And so there were in the former Yugoslavia, there were eight autonomous political entities, and each one of those would provide a leader that would become president for several years before they would be displaced. Now, why is this an important thing for extraterrestrial disclosure? Well, the thing is that positive extraterrestrials have made it very clear that world peace is a precondition for disclosure, that disclosure requires world peace, because otherwise the advanced technologies that will be released would easily be abused by warring factions. And so that's the precondition for a lot of these technologies to be released. And Donald Trump, he is very keen on establishing world peace, as evidenced by the different peace agreements he's attained throughout the world. I mean, the conflicts in places like Armenia, Azerbaijan, between Cambodia and Thailand, what we've just saw in Israel, Palestine, or are witnessing in Israel, Palestine, India, Pakistan, and he's been attempting to do the same in Ukraine, bring about a resolution that I think at the end of the day, because Trump has played this important role as the leader of the world's undisputed superpower, well, maybe you want to add China to that, that he will be the kind of overwhelming favorite to become this inaugural world president. Okay, so here is something that I think is very noteworthy. So let me play this little clip here that this shows the International Space Station live feed. So there's a live feed from the International Space Station, and here you see what appears to be a triangular formation, some sort of triangular craft. And it's going across the screen, and soon you'll see it reappear again. Now let's just watch it reappear. Okay, so here it is. It's reappearing on the screen, and now you have NASA interrupting the live stream and suggesting that there's some kind of anomaly has led to the live stream being shut down. So according to Dr. Horace and others, there you go. These live views from the external cameras on the International Space Station have been temporarily suspended due to a something off signal period. The video stream in space. We lost that. Okay. Well, there you have the live stream being interrupted by NASA. Now, and here's a close-up of this craft that is going across the International Space Station live feed. Now, some people say, well, what the International Space Station was doing was taking photograph or capturing images of the watercraft on the surface of the Earth, on the oceans, and that these are just like a fishing fleet going across. Well, I don't think a fishing fleet moves that quickly. And also the fact that the live feed was interrupted, was cut by NASA, tells me that this was more than just a fishing fleet, that this was in fact a craft that was coming across NASA's live feed. So very, very interesting that NASA is still doing this. NASA's been doing this for a long time. Wherever there's an anomaly that's captured on a live stream, that very quickly that stream is interrupted. And I think that alone is, I think, something worth considering as to whether or not this is an actual triangular UFO being captured by the ISS as opposed to a fishing fleet on the Earth's surface. Right. Okay, so I did a monthly live briefing last Saturday. So here is my introduction. It goes for less than a minute, and it gives you a kind of roundup of what to expect in my monthly live briefing. So let's play that. Very exciting last few weeks with all that's happening. Three-Eye Atlas and the coronal mass ejections, the solar flares, the geomagnetic storms hitting the Earth. I mean, all of that is building up to something pretty profound. I think we are going to see pretty powerful events playing out in November. So I'm very glad that you're here to get up to speed with all the latest information. I've got quite a bit to share with you. This will be covering the last 4 to 6 weeks of exopolitics related news. And with each of these monthly briefings, what I do is first give you the top stories that I think are worth looking into and understanding as far as exopolitics is concerned over the last month or so. Then I look at some of the upcoming interviews that I'm going to be releasing over the next week, give you a little bit of a rundown on those. And then I get into the geopolitics, giving you an exopolitics perspective. So that's the basic framework for these monthly briefings. So I'm very glad you could join. All right, so that's the overview for those monthly briefings, and there'll be another one very likely at the end of December to see out the year. We're probably talking about December 27 tentatively. All right, so here is the live feed from, sorry, not the live feed, but it's a press conference by NASA that was conducted on November 19, and it focused on Three-Eye Atlas, and you had these 4 scientists talking about different initiatives that NASA has undertaken. They are talking about the most recent images taken by NASA, as well as the kind of like historical images taken from July of this year. So they go through the whole sequence of NASA instruments taking photos of Three-Eye Atlas, beginning with the Atlas photographs in July of this year, the Hubble, the James Webb, and so forth. So going through all their scientific instruments, and then they released the image of Three-Eye Atlas as seen by the HiRISE telescope or the HiRISE camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which was taken on October 2nd. And so there you have it. It just shows, this is the HiRISE image. I mean, this is the kind of like most powerful of the cameras that NASA has focused on Three-Eye Atlas. Let's just say in terms of cameras on the Mars orbiters, that there are 6 of those, that this was the most powerful camera among all of those. I mean, the James Webb obviously is more powerful, but it was much further away from Three-Eye Atlas than the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, which took this at a distance of, I think it was around 30 million miles. So, and here we have a comparison between the images taken by amateur astronomers and also the NASA HiRISE image. So here you have some of the images. I'm not sure which one that one was. I guess that would be the HiRISE. Okay, here's the Soho Lascaux. And I think this is the HiRISE image that was just taken and that we just talked about at the press conference. And that's, in terms of the Mars orbiters, that's the highest resolution. And overall, people thought that this Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter image would be the best that NASA had to offer, but it was not very good when compared to some of the amateur images taken. And so here's a really good comparison. So this is the image I talked a little bit earlier that was taken by the amateur astronomer Dr. Satoru, as I recall. So we talked about, so you can see the tail or a jet, and here you see 3I Atlas with the coma and the nucleus. So compare that. This is taken by an amateur astronomer using a ground-based telescope, which 3I Atlas is currently, we're talking somewhere around 2.5 astronomical units away. So, that's kind of like more than 200 million miles away. It was able to take this image compared to 3I Atlas as captured by the high-rise camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, and 3I Atlas at the time this was taken was approximately 30 million miles away. So how can that be? How can this image taken by an amateur photographer, almost 8 times the distance, 3I Atlas is about 8 times the distance from this ground-based telescope compared to the camera on the high-rise camera on the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter that was able to take this image that was kind of like pretty disappointing, really, a faint tail, and it's very blurry and so forth. Okay, so this exemplifies the problem humanity is facing when it comes to the truth about what's happening in space. Amateur astronomers are releasing clearer images of space objects such as 3I Atlas than highly funded space agencies with billion-dollar space telescopes that delay, obfuscate, and manipulate the received data to hide the truth. Thank goodness for the upcoming International Asteroid Warning Network exercise that will have all eyes on 3I Atlas from November 27 to January 27. So again, this exercise that has been created by this United Nations authorized organization, International Asteroid Warning Network, is going to have, I don't know how many astronomers around the world there are that participate, but we're talking thousands of astronomers, both professional and amateur, that will be participating in this exercise to track 3I Atlas. And so we're going to get some really good quality images of 3I Atlas as it gets closer and closer to the Earth. I think its closest approach to the Earth is December 19, and it'll be about 1.8 astronomical units, which is, we're talking about 160 million miles away. So as far as ground-based telescopes are concerned, they will be able to get some really good quality images on that, and hopefully we'll learn the truth. But what's become very clear now over the last, I guess, 5 months, going all the way back to July, is that the truth is not going to come from the official space agencies, whether we're talking about NASA, whether we're talking about the European Space Agency or China Space Agency. All they do is release very fuzzy, indistinct objects that you really can't ascertain what is going on, and that the best images are coming from astronomers. So thank goodness that we have this exercise for 2 months where all the world's eyes will be focused on 3I Atlas. And I can't help but think that this exercise was really created by white hats that wanted to get the truth out there, despite the resistance by the official space agencies that have been controlled by the deep state for many, many years. Okay, more Galactic Envoys Awaken to Dark Fleet service as Galactic Federation double agents. And I've interviewed now half a dozen people who claim to be Galactic Envoys, and the stories that are emerging is that these people from birth have been targeted, they've been traumatized, and they have been used in these secret space programs in ways that increase their trauma and make it difficult for them to remember what's going on. But that at some point they realized the truth, that they were targeted because of their special abilities, that these are not just starseeds, but galactic envoys, which means that they have partners serving on some of the major positive extraterrestrial organizations monitoring our planet, whether we're talking about the Galactic Federation of Worlds, the Ashtar Command, that these organizations have their people here on Earth. And when these people are detected and put through these deep state traumatic experiences, what they're doing is they're recording everything. That this is like a sting operation, or that they're double agents, like everything is being recorded, and that all of the authorities, all of the people within the deep state that have been doing this, everything is known. And so eventually people will learn the truth. I mean, the Epstein files is a big issue in the United States at the moment, and that, of course, is going to, over the next few weeks, lead to a lot of the truth about who Jeffrey Epstein was working with and who was being subjected to this kind of like sex trafficking, and how they involve young people in that. Now, what's been happening at this kind of like secret space program level is much darker, but there are records of these, and eventually those records will probably be released by these organizations because everything has been recorded. So that'll be very interesting. So in this interview, I talk about one of these galactic, and well, actually, we talk about two. There is Anita Katzenbach and also Steffi, and they are both interviewed here, and they talk about some of the experiences that they have had in serving with the Dark Fleet and the kind of trauma they were subjected to. So I think this is a pattern which is repeating itself over and over again with these different galactic envoys. I do not believe that this is a case of copycat behavior. I think that this is a genuine phenomenon that is happening, that starseeds or galactic envoys are somehow tracked at birth. They are then subjected to all of these kinds of MK Ultra traumatic programs, and because of the psychic gifts and abilities of these starseeds, they are forced to serve in the secret space programs in a number of different functions. So definitely this, I think, is a phenomenon that really needs to be unpacked. And so this is another example of a galactic envoy and what has happened to her. All right, so yesterday on November 21st, the documentary, The Age of Disclosure, was released. I haven't watched it yet, but so far what I've learned in reviews, trailer critiques, is that it focuses on the testimonies of 34 former and current government, military, and intelligence officials who say they have seen evidence of UFOs violating sensitive military installations, UFO crash retrieval operations, corporate reverse engineering programs, and the existence of non-human intelligence. So all of these are significant and move the UFO disclosure forward significantly. So I think all that is really great, that there are officials now coming forward and talking about these types of issues. What the documentary doesn't cover is the extensive evidence from eyewitnesses, victims, insiders, etc., that UFOs have been successfully reverse engineered and used in secret space programs, that secret agreements with alien species have been reached, that US government and military have worked with multiple ET species, humans have been used in biological experiments, cloning, super soldier programs, etc., in secret dams hidden all over the world. So this is where, we get into, there are different layers to disclosure, obviously. The surface layer are things that most of the general public can handle, because these are things that have been kind of like floating around now since 2017, since the New York Times and Politico ran their stories about the ATIP program, and you had people like David Grush coming forward and Jacob Barber coming forward talking about classified UFO programs, and so this has received a lot of press coverage. It's been subject of several U.S. congressional hearings. Even the vice president and the J.D. Vance, and you have Secretary of State Marco Rubio also expressing interest in all of this. So that's really good. That's progress. Now, but these other issues that I just mentioned, where we talk about secret space programs, secret agreements with alien species, and super soldiers, cloning, biological experiments, that's all a kind of deeper, darker layer of all of this. And quite frankly, a lot of people will find it very difficult to handle that. And yet that maybe this will take 5 years, 10 years before you have the same kind of mass media attention put on this. So as far as the documentary Age of Disclosure is concerned, some say it'll trigger a mass awakening. And I think that's probably going to happen for those unfamiliar with or sitting on the fence with many of the above UFO-related issues. It will indeed be a groundbreaking mass disclosure event, given the prominence of the participating officials, including the current Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio. And also, it's being released on Amazon Prime and has Steven Spielberg-connected director-producer Dan Farah, and also the intelligence community is supporting this. And you have quite a number of intelligence officials appearing in this documentary. So it puts out a narrative that the intelligence community is very comfortable with. Now, this is where we get to overt criticism of the Age of Disclosure. Some have been saying that it is really a limited hangout that is promoting a UFO threat agenda narrative for a possible false flag operation planned by the deep state or the intelligence community. So there are people, Daniel List, Stephen Greer, who are saying that this is what this kind of limited hangout is trying to do, presenting the UFO issue as a threat and thereby justifying future actions by the deep state, the intel community, whereby you could actually have some kind of concocted invasion scenario, and that's very real, and we'll see what happens. But certainly there are critics of this movie that think that it's part of an emerging psyop to justify a false flag operation. So my approach is I take a cup is half full approach to the Age of Disclosure. I think on the one level, it does help in waking up a lot of people that have no idea that there have been UFO crash retrieval operations going all the way back to Roswell and even earlier, that there have been attempts by corporations to reverse engineer these, that non-human intelligence have been discovered associated with these craft. So all of that is good. That's all a step in the right direction. But getting to those deeper layers where you get to the truth, I mean, that's going to take, I think, a few more years maybe to get people ready for the fact that, or for the possibility that human leaders could be clones controlled by some nefarious unknown entity or group or organization, whether it's, these Sith Lodges that I talked about earlier, or the deep state, the Draco reptilians, whoever. That's going to take quite a bit of education. So again, I just want to finish up by referring you to the December 13 webinar that's coming up, where we'll be talking about what is likely to happen as 2026 approaches us. What's going to happen over the next year? I think these three experts that will be joining me, they will give us a unique perspective on this and help us prepare for what's coming, because I think 2026 is going to be a year like no other before it when it comes to disclosure, and I'm very happy to be here and to be a part of that, and I appreciate all of you who have kind of hung in there over the years, over the decades, because I think vindication is coming for all of us. So thank you for watching, and aloha.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.